back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad to welcome you back to our show again this week. We're especially glad that there are people like you out there that are interested in the cities that they live in and that surround them. So we're glad to have you with us tonight. And it's important for good government to have a good flow of information going back and forth between the city council and mayors, the city staff, and you people, the residents that live in cities. So we'll encourage you that if any of the issues we cover tonight kind of resonate with you, and you live in Robbinsdale, then be sure to take down the email and phone number for our guest. But if you live in another city, contact your city and find out what they're doing in that particular area if it's something that interests you. If you haven't watched our show before, each week we'll have somebody on from one of the 9 cities in Northwest Community Television's viewing area to talk about what are the current and up-and-coming issues that are happening in that city. And then from time to time we'll have some groups like Hennepin County Commissioners or the Northwest Human Services Council that affect all of our cities. So we're very glad to have you with us tonight, and we are here and glad to welcome as a guest Regan Murphy, who is the mayor of Robbinsdale.
Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you with us again. It's been a little bit now.
I enjoy it, but thanks. Good to be back.
Good. And since you've been on my show before, you know I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Give a little bit of information for the people that don't know you from the other cities.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Regan Murphy, born and raised in Robbinsdale. I ran for mayor in 2012 and was elected. So it's just been almost 3 years now. And I've got 3 kids that are Delaney, Mac, and Declan that are 11, 9, and 5. And my wife, Chris, she's a kindergarten teacher. And I moved back to Robbinsdale in 2010, wanted to raise my kids there, and next thing you know, I got involved, kind of like you're talking about. You know, want to make a difference and give a little bit back, and next thing you know, I decided to run for mayor, and here we are.
Right. Moving forward.
Yeah, and doing a lot of good things. It's been a lot of work. It's been exhausting at times.
Definitely.
But I love it. I do enjoy it.
Okay, let's move along into kind of redevelopment and some new businesses that are coming into Robbinsdale. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the redevelopment of that old bank building at West Broadway and Rockford Road. How long has that been sitting there, and kind of a little of the background, and then we'll talk about what's going to happen.
Sure. So I think it was back in 1967 is when TCF put up that building. And as you know, banks traditionally have the brick and mortar buildings and have kind of gone away with that with internet banking. So TCF decided that they no longer needed that space. So it was vacant for, probably about 5 years. They're still kind of utilizing a little bit, but it's the largest building on our main street down there, and it was having that top floor vacant was not good. So an opportunity came about. When they were selling it, after a while, the market just, it came down a little bit and made sense for the city, and we ended up acquiring that building, which allowed us to then, not have a middleman. And so if we're trying to get somebody to occupy the space, we didn't have to deal with the owner of the building. We own it, so it was, made it a little easier for us to recruit somebody, if you will. So.
And no, it's the Wicked Wart Brewery, right?
Correct.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that group and what they're doing or where they're at in the process.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique story. I will say that the city council, we are very proactive from the beginning before we even acquired TCF, where we changed our ordinances to allow tap rooms. Now it's just, like I mentioned earlier, we were trying to stay a step ahead. We saw what was happening in other communities, and with Surly not being that far away, we thought that it would be a good fit for something like that in Robbinsdale.
Oh, definitely.
And so we changed our ordinances to allow tap rooms. We did that first because we didn't want a business to come and say, hey, we want to open up here, and then we have to go through all the entire process while they wait. We wanted to be ready to go. So we did that. We acquired the building, and we learned that the folks at Wicked Wart, an entrepreneur, was looking to open up a tap room and was looking at other cities. So invited him to Robbinsdale, and he came with his wife and one of his daughters, and me and the city manager gave him a tour downtown and introduced him to different business owners, and we showed him the building and kind of showed him, hey, here's what you can do, and talked about the community and what we're all about. And the next day they asked for plans for the building.
Oh, that was cool.
Within a couple of weeks after that, we signed a development agreement. And they have been just going crazy on construction. It's been nothing but impressive watching them take that building and clean out from the inside and just start fresh. And so I drove by on the way here, and they've got their lights on out front. They got big garage doors. They got all the the plumbing, the electrical, all that's done. And they're hoping to start brewing beer in a couple weeks, and then kind of mid-January have an opening.
Oh yeah, because I was just going to ask the timeline, because I drive by there every once in a while and I think, oh, I wonder when that's going to open, right?
Yeah, it's been impressive, and they're super excited, and everybody in Robbinsdale and the surrounding communities are excited because it's a destination. It's a great place to socialize, and what's neat about it too is to have a business like that is manufacturing a product. Robbinsdale water, and it's made in Robbinsdale, so it has that identity, and it's something to be proud of. So, and they're great. They've been great to work with. So it's been a long journey, but definitely well worth it. Wait,
and then so the city bought the TCF building. Now, is that done through the Economic Development Authority?
Correct. That is correct.
Maybe you could just mention that a little bit, so that give a little background on that.
Yeah, so most cities have a housing authority, or in our case, the Robbinsdale Economic Development Authority, which started back in the 70s. I think mainly with homes, buying old homes or old buildings, tearing them down, and then putting up something new. And so the EDA, we are funded by a levy each year, and that money we use then to acquire properties and try to raise the value of the structure, be it a home or a commercial building. And so the EDA is comprised of the city council, but we have a separate president, and then our city manager is the executive director. So that's kind of our role, is to with just maintain and improve the housing and commercial stock. And so that's, you're right, we got involved, and the EDA is who bought, is the entity that
and
purchased
I thought,
the building.
People might wonder, how can a city buy it?
Right.
But there's a mechanism to help cities, and especially to deal with, to improve the appearance. And didn't it start out with blight kind of things?
Yeah, that was the biggest thing. Yep, was
and
rundown
then it's
homes,
and become part of the redevelopment process.
It's evolved. Again, with a lot of the homes in Robbinsdale, many of which were built in the early 1900s. Families have changed.
Oh, definitely.
Grew up a house with 2 bedrooms and 6 or 7 kids. That was people were okay with that. Now people want bigger homes, so we're trying to kind of accommodate the change in taste and keep Robbinsdale viable and keep the vitality. So.
Definitely. And Robbinsdale has kind of changed over from way in the past. It was young families, and then it aged, and then it was more retirees. Now it's kind of swung around again, so now it's lots of young families, right?
It is.
Being the largest group.
Right. It's a unique, cycle of, I think it's common in entering suburbs for that to happen. And yeah, I think the last time it was like this was when I was a kid. There's just kids everywhere. Yeah. And yeah, the demographics have changed significantly just within 15 years. And so last night we had our Christmas tree lighting, and ever since I moved back, every year there's more and more people, and we had, well over 100 kids that were probably 10 and under. Right. And it's been really exciting to have that, because when you get families like that, it just the activity and the involvement, it's been a lot of fun to see. Right.
Now another new business, or I guess it's a business, on 36th and West Broadway.
Yep.
Is a new building coming up, and it's Claire Terrace. Now, can you kind of tell us about their purpose and what's happening there.
Right. So Clare Terrace is the building. Clare Housing is the nonprofit organization that we worked with to put the building up. And what Clare Housing does, very passionate people, amazing organization. And what they do is they provide housing and medical care for individuals that have HIV, AIDS, often drug addiction or dealing with homelessness. So they provide stable housing, they provide medical care, and help these individuals get back on their feet, be productive, be healthy, and just improve their lifestyle. And so this is, they have several other houses, and I can't remember which, maybe their fourth or fifth project, and they've got another one coming in North Minneapolis or Northeast. But it's a 36-bed unit. And it's a beautiful building. It's complete now.
Go by it.
And so yeah, it's a housing facility. At City Council, we did our due diligence. We met with the executive director. We toured their facilities. We went to the neighborhoods and talked to the neighbors. And hey, what's this like in your neighborhood? Just to find out what it'd be like. And we are nothing but impressed. And there's still that stigmatism with HIV and AIDS. And at the end of the day, we kind of all look at each other and go, we have a place. We certainly have room in Robbinsdale for this, for Clare Housing, or what Clare Terrace is the name of the building. And they've been just so appreciative. And yesterday was the World AIDS Day, December 1st, and they had an opening, and they had a packed house. Over 100 people came to the opening. And it was fun to see how excited they are to be in Robbinsdale, and we're just thrilled to have them. A brand new building, a beautiful building on that corner, which, by the way, has been vacant for 12 years, a
long time.
So to have a nice building there and people excited to be in Robbinsdale is awesome.
Now, that site had a dry cleaning business for a long time, so that the city had to be involved in that. Was there chemicals and stuff that had to be cleaned up, or anyway, the city had to be involved from that aspect, right?
Yeah, the soil was contaminated. You're right. There was a dry cleaner there, and that was one nice thing too. Working with Clare Housing is that they had so many partnerships with different entities to help with the cleanup and the site preparation, and they had the experience with this with other buildings. So we basically partnered with them, and they kind of worked with other organizations to get the money and the funding to clean it up and put up the building.
So that's been a good positive thing, and just newly opened. Because I was going to ask you a timeline, but the timeline is complete. Yeah,
it is open. It was about a year. You were asking earlier about processes.
How long it takes,
from the time we kind of got through the public meetings or the public hearings, and then we gave kind of the go-ahead. It was about a year for them to construct the building.
Yeah, so there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that your city staff needs to do, right?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of things, and not only the construction, but dealing with the neighbors and the contractors. Big trucks, they backed up and ruined somebody's driveway, and so there's little things that pop up, and our city staff was great, and the residents were patient, and it all worked out in the end. So but those little things that happen whenever you get in those projects.
Yeah, things that you don't anticipate, but then you figure out how to deal with them.
You do, and it is one nice thing too about Robbinsdale and some of our smaller neighbors too is that connectivity to city staff. In Minneapolis, you're going to be hard pressed to be able to call up the city engineer just on the phone on any given day and go, hey, these contractors drove over my my tulips, and can you come help and fix the situation? And we had that happen, and it got taken care of. So.
Now the third one that I'm aware of anyway is the Palette and Pearl shop. Did I get that right?
Yeah, the Palette and Pearl.
Okay. And now, what kind of business is this?
Well,
and where is it?
It's right in town center in Robbinsdale, not too far from Athens Cafe and First Crack Cafe. And it's a Robbinsdale resident who had a passion for knitting and whatnot, and decided to open up a store. So for anybody that is in knitting, she's got this amazing store and all these different types of yarns and just everything you can imagine.
Oh, right.
And so it's cool to see somebody that wants to take the risk of opening a business and wants to do it in their town. I think that says a lot about Robbinsdale and the people that live there, is they have that confidence and I'm going to do that. I want to do it here. So I think so far things are going great.
Now, another new thing is the Minnesota Wrestling Hall of Fame. Is it already, or will it be? Because I wasn't sure when I was making out my questions. Located in Robbinsdale. So give us a little background. What's happening there?
So the short answer is yes.
Okay.
The long answer is earlier this summer we were approached by a group of people that was kind of interested in promoting Minnesota wrestling, and decided that hey, there's no Minnesota Wrestling Hall of Fame. And then they were like, well, where would it be? And they all said Robbinsdale. And so I don't know if you know the history of wrestling in Robbinsdale.
Yeah, I think you have to mention that a little bit, because some of the people out there might not.
Sure. So John Grigelko is a pretty popular name for anybody that went to Robbinsdale High School. And he was the first wrestling coach in Robbinsdale Senior High and started one of the very first high school wrestling programs. And they dominated high school wrestling for quite some time.
Oh, definitely.
And he coached Vern Gagne and his son, Greg, the Hennings, Larry, and his son, Kurt, and numerous other young men in Robbinsdale who eventually went on to become professional wrestlers. But Mean Gene Okerlund, there's Ravishing Rick Rude, there's a whole bunch of them that got their roots started in Robbinsdale. So knowing that, they were like, well, it makes sense to have it in Robbinsdale. So they contacted us, and they're like, hey, we want to start this group. They're a nonprofit, and they were looking for a home, and we're like, absolutely, it makes sense. And it's funny.
With your history.
Well, yeah, it's you know what, a lot of people know what Robbinsdale is. And the cool thing too about for me, the way I look at it is, Robbinsdale High School, and really the sporting program and the academics they were very successful. Oh, yes. And it had so much influence on Robbinsdale today. Oh, yeah. So many, I mean, if you look at a family like mine, there's many of them that are third, fourth generation of Robbinsdale. Yes. That these traditions continue, and that tradition of John Grigelko and work hard, reward, take care of your neighbors. That continues to exist. So it means a lot, I think, for me and other people to have this Wrestling Hall of Fame, because it kind of creates a home for that passion, that spirit that we have in Robbinsdale, and it ensures that it's going to continue for new generations and new residents too, that are starting to feel like the electricity and all the cool things that are happening, and sometimes want to know why, how did it all start? Well, that's kind of where it started. So it's fun to have. And
so now, where is it going to be located? And
yeah, you asked that. It's going to be, right now they're in the Robin Gallery.
Okay.
And so they're working
42nd on Rockford Road.
Right on Rockford Road, along the railroad tracks, Railroad Avenue. So they've been working with the Historical Society and the gallery to kind of carve out a little space. And I think over time they'd like that to grow. But they've been doing quarterly events where, like Jim Brunzell, which is a popular wrestler, they had him in town speaking, doing a book signing. So they want to do a lot of things as far as education and bringing in speakers and keeping the sport of wrestling alive too. So they got that mission going as well. But that's kind of where they're housed right now. That's where their address is. They're on Facebook. I think they have a website, and I think it's one of those that's just going to kind of grow over time. And it won't, too far down the road. Maybe they'll have a separate building, and hopefully will be like a real destination for wrestling fans.
There's some concern in the cities after the last, the Great Recession, that a number of single-family homes became rental units. Now, are there a lot of homes that are rental units? Approximately how many are there in Robbinsdale?
I think there's close to 700.
Okay.
I think as a percentage, it's probably maybe close to 10%. Actually, I think that includes apartment buildings. So I think it's around 7 or 8% for single-family homes.
Okay.
But when you look at units, it can be anywhere from 10 to 12% if you include apartments.
Yeah, if you include apartments as
right.
well, which are also rental units, right, for families.
Correct. So the number of rentals has increased. Money is cheap right now, and it's one of the issues with some of these suburbs. I know Coon Rapids, Robbinsdale, Crystal, New Hope. Older homes that are 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom that are less expensive, and with cheap money, it's easier for investors to buy them and turn them into income producing properties.
Which is fine, but it does bring up some concerns for cities too. What kinds of concerns do cities have, or what are you dealing with in regards to these rental homes?
Yeah, it's tough because there are great renters. Rentals are not bad.
No.
But at the same time, renters don't have that same stake as homeowners do.
Right.
And the success, the viability, safety of the community. Even though they might live there, it's a lot easier for them to come and go.
Right.
And they don't have that stake in the game.
Right.
So that can be a challenge. The care of the housing stock for the investors or somebody that might own the house, they don't take care of it like as if they would if they lived there.
Right.
And but it's also the fabric of the community too that can be affected. So it's tough because there's the millennials too that don't necessarily want a mortgage.
Oh, right.
So I don't blame them.
Right.
So they want to rent. So it's a balancing act, and so because of the increase in rentals, we have kind of started to take a look.
Okay.
We've kind of tried to look at crime in Robbinsdale, and does that correlate to where we have high rentals? We try not. I mean, ideally, would not like to have high concentration of rental properties and have them dispersed through the community. So, yeah, it's something that we talk about quite often.
And so, are there any specific actions the city has taken yet, or it's just a matter of kind of monitoring?
Right now we're monitoring. We're talking about what action we might be able to take. So we'll have to work with our city attorney on that. But there was recently a case in Winona where the city was able to limit the number of rentals on a given block as a percentage of homes, of units. That went all the way to the state Supreme Court. And they basically, the ruling was, they didn't kind of say yay or nay, but did not say they could not do that. But it doesn't necessarily say that anybody can do that. So in this particular scenario, Winona has a college down there, and I think that was part of their issue. So, it's something that we're going to look at and see if we have the justification to do that. But we've also in Robbinsdale, we've got, if you are going to be a renter, you mentioned the kind of Great Recession. Suddenly, people became renters when they didn't expect to be. Because they couldn't sell their home, and they had to move for whatever reason. So we do a lot more training now with these individuals, and I think that's helpful to say, hey, you know what? Welcome to Robbinsdale. You're going to be a renter. Here's what you need to do to be, get good renters. And so we're trying to educate them. So that's kind of part of our approach too. Is
because working with the owners. Right.
Yeah, and knowing what our rules are. We've got some pretty tough ordinances when it comes to crime and nuisance. Which we're able to get bad renters out and enforce that. It's a great tool that gives, empowers the residents a little bit if they do have a problem house. So it's something we're very mindful of. And we've addressed a number of things at certain levels. With good success.
Robbinsdale has a program called Scattered Site Housing. So it's dealing with your older homes that are having some problems, that are deteriorating, right? Maybe you can tell us about what this program does. Right,
so earlier we talked about the EDA, the Economic Development Authority. And so this kind of scattered site program had been going on since the 70s. And the EDA has redone or rehabilitated or torn down or I'll just say about 300 properties
right.
over that time frame. And so yeah, that's kind of another approach that we have
right.
is if there is a small, 900 square foot house that's not in great shape, that might be a nice scenario for a rental.
Right.
We will try to go in and we'll try to buy it. If it makes sense for the city.
Right.
Where we can tear it down and then build a new home.
And then that purchasing is under the Economic Development Authority, but also as you. Does the city generally always do the tear down and then you try to find a developer to build? Or does the city get involved in the building part?
It varies.
Okay.
There's scenarios where the city has been involved with like Hennepin Technical College.
Oh, right, right.
Where we've worked with them, to build the home.
Right.
But generally the EDA, they'll buy the home, we'll hire somebody to clear the site, and then we will promote that site and try to, work with a developer who can then purchase the site from the EDA, and then they can handle the building of the home. And it kind of depends on the developer. We've had some good success. We've had some bad luck with some developers. So we're time you develop relationships, and you know who builds good homes and the kind of homes that you want in the residents. But it's an opportunity to, if we get a new property, to improve the tax base.
Oh, right, right.
Meaning a home that's worth a little bit more is going to help decrease the piece of the tax pie for other residents. So it's got a win-win for residents.
And then it improves the visual appearance of any neighborhood.
Right.
Because the homes that you're working with are the ones that are running down.
Correct.
And not in as good shape, right?
Right. And it allows us to keep families that want to expand and that want more room. We've had a number of scenarios. Actually, we just sold one. A great family that kind of grew too big for their house. They needed more room. They really wanted to stay in Robbinsdale, but we sometimes, as a small city, we don't have a huge pool of housing stock. But they wanted to build. They found a lot. They built their dream house, and they got to stay in Robbinsdale.
Right, right. Yeah, so it does help with the size of homes too. That you can increase a little larger size home in your area.
Right, right.
So it's an ongoing program.
Yeah, and we're constantly looking at properties, and it's been very successful. And so, like I mentioned, the EDA, we do levy, so we use that money. But the EDA also, we have other sources of revenue. If we buy land and sell land. Broadway Court is a building that we own. It's kind of downtown Robbinsdale. It's a senior living. That's something that we own and run, or we don't run, but we have a management company that runs it. But it's another source of revenue for the EDA. Yep.
Well, I want to thank you very much.
Of course, thank you.
Got a lot of information for those of you out there in Robbinsdale, and we'll encourage you to be sure to tune in next week for part 2 of Robbinsdale's issues, and then remember to contact your mayor and city council people if any of the issues tonight were ones that were of concern to you. Bye.